You think you know someone, your best friend since childhood, the person who was there when you moved to a new country, the one who introduced you to your in-laws, the one who held your hand when you gave birth. You trust them with your life. Then one day they tell you they saw your husband making out with someone else. And you realize they're lying, but you have no idea why. I'm 29. I met my best friend Sarah and my husband when I was 11 years old. I had just moved to a new country with my family and my soon-to-be sister-in-law introduced me to Sarah. We clicked immediately. We grew up together, went through adolescence, got through all the awkward phases. She was there when I met my husband, she was there when we started dating, she was a bridesmaid at our wedding. When I got pregnant, she was thrilled. She threw me a baby shower, she called herself Auntie Sarah. I never questioned anything. Now we're adults with our own lives. We share some friends, but we also have separate groups. I work in an office from 9 to 2 with a 30-minute break. Sometimes I go to my husband's office. It's only a 5-minute walk, or I grab a coffee at a cafe nearby. I travel for work occasionally. I always mention it to Sarah in casual conversation. She knows my schedule, knows when I'm out of town. Last week I was supposed to travel for work on Wednesday, but Tuesday night a red alert popped up. The weather was supposed to be terrible, flooding, the whole deal. My work trip got canceled, so I stayed home with my 2-year-old. My husband runs his own business. He went out at 6 in the morning to make sure everything was closed up and put flood protection in place. By 7:30 he was back home making breakfast. It didn't even start raining until 1 in the afternoon. We were home the whole day. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we didn't go out. At 3 on Wednesday, Sarah texted me. She asked if I was home already because it was flooding where I was supposed to be traveling. I just replied, home safe. That was it. I didn't think anything of it. Saturday rolls around. Sarah and I go to the same gym class. Afterward, she says we need to talk in private, so we go out to my car and she sits in the passenger seat. She looks serious. She takes a breath and says, on Wednesday, I saw your husband with a woman. They were making out. Your kid was in the car. I froze, my brain just stopped, but then I remembered Wednesday. I was home with my husband and my baby for 2 days straight. He was with me, he never left, so I knew she was lying, but I didn't understand why. I asked her 3 times if she was sure it was this past Wednesday. She confirmed it 3 times. I asked her what time. She said around 11 in the morning. I asked if it was during the red alert. She said yes. I asked if she was 100% sure, and then she went into a full description. She told me my husband was making out with a gorgeous Barbie look-alike blonde. She described the car, the street, the whole scene. I sat there in the driver's seat gripping the steering wheel. I didn't scream, I didn't cry, I just said, that's strange because my husband was home with me and our daughter all Wednesday. She went pale, then she tried to backtrack. She said maybe it was a different day. But she had already confirmed 3 times it was Wednesday. I told her, you know what, let's go back inside, I need to process this. I went home. My husband was playing with our daughter in the living room. I sat down next to him and told him exactly what Sarah had said. He looked confused, then he looked angry. He said, that never happened, I was here, you were here, we can check the Ring doorbell footage if you want. I told him I believed him because I knew I had been there, but I couldn't let it go. I had to know why Sarah would try to sabotage my marriage. We had been friends for 18 years, 18 years. She was at my wedding, she held my baby. Why would she make up a lie like that? I texted her that night. I said, I need the truth. Why did you say you saw my husband cheating? She didn't reply for hours. Then she sent a long message. She said she was sorry. She said she had seen a car that looked like ours and a man who looked like my husband, and she just assumed. She said she was trying to protect me. I didn't buy it. The details were too specific. The time, the location, the description of the woman. She didn't just see a similar car, she said a scene. I talked to my husband about it. He was furious. He said he never wanted to see her again. He said she was trying to tear our family apart, and I agreed. I cut contact with her. I blocked her number. I told our mutual friends the basics, that she had lied about something serious and I couldn't trust her anymore. A few of them reached out to me separately. One friend said Sarah had been acting strange lately. Another said Sarah had been jealous of my marriage for a while. I didn't know, I had never seen it. Then I started thinking about little things, times when Sarah would make comments about my husband, like, he's too good to be true, or you're so lucky but don't get too comfortable. I always brushed it off. Now I wondered, I posted on Reddit about it just to vent, and the comments were mixed. A lot of people said she was clearly jealous. Some said she might have wanted my husband for herself. Others said she was trying to make me leave him so I'd be single and she could have more of my time. I don't know which one is true, maybe none of them, maybe all of them, but here's the thing. After I cut her off, my marriage got stronger. My husband and I talked more, we laughed more. We realized how close we came to a disaster. If I had been a different person, if I had believed her without checking, that lie could have destroyed everything. It almost did. I still don't have a clear reason why she did it. She never gave me a real explanation, but I don't need one anymore. Some people don't deserve a place in your life even if they've been there for 18 years. Now I pay more attention to who I let in, I trust my gut, and I never underestimate what someone might be hiding. I thought I had dealt with betrayal, but trust issues don't always come from friends. Sometimes they come from the person you're about to marry. I'm a 28-year-old guy. My fiancé is 32. We'd been together for 2.5 years when we decided to get married. Everything seemed public and healthy. We posted pictures from our vacations on Instagram, tagged each other, made it clear we were in a relationship. But she didn't have many real-life followers from work or personal life. She had about 7 or 8 really close friends she met regularly and one cousin. That was it, we're both adults. We decided to get married in November or December of that year. I wanted her to meet my family, so I took her consent and set up a dinner at a nice restaurant in the city. My family loved her. We started talking dates. My fiancé said it was too early to get married that year, so we pushed it to February. Fine, I booked a marriage hall in our city. You have to reserve early. She booked a hall on her side too. That's normal in our culture. Both families have separate parties. So far, I had made her meet my family and one female friend of mine who lived in a different town. Both meetings went well. She also met my brother and sister-in-law, but I still hadn't met any of her friends, not one. I asked if I could meet them. She said, not yet, it's too early. After we're married, you'll meet them. I thought I was overreacting. Maybe it was a cultural thing. She's Bengali from a traditional family. But we were 6 months away from the wedding. The invitations were being printed. I had already booked the caterer. And she still wouldn't let me talk to her best friends. I tried to bring it up gently. I said, babe, I'd like to at least know your close friends before the wedding. I don't want to walk in on the day and not recognize anyone. She got defensive. She said her friends were private people, that they didn't like meeting new people, that I was being pushy. I backed off. I didn't want to start a fight, but then I started noticing things. She would take calls in another room. She'd get texts and look at her phone with a tight expression. One night I saw her texting someone and she immediately locked the screen when I walked in. I asked who it was. She said, just my cousin. I let it go. A few weeks later, we were at her cousin's house for lunch. I mentioned that I'd love to meet her friends. Her cousin gave her a weird look. My fiancé changed the subject. That night I told her I felt like she was hiding something. She got angry. She said I was being insecure, that I was trying to control her. I apologized. I really thought I was the problem. Then I found a post on Reddit about a similar situation. People were saying this could be a scam, a marriage where the bride's friends are all fake or part of a closed system. Someone mentioned a caste thing or even a terrorist group. That sounded insane, but I started digging. I looked up her friends' profiles on Instagram. Most of them had private accounts with very few posts. The one public friend had a handle full of cryptic quotes and no photos of my fiancé. I asked my fiancé if she had a picture with them from a recent trip she told me about. She said she didn't take any. That seemed off. I confronted her again, this time more firmly. I said, I'm not comfortable getting married without meeting your closest friends. This is a basic step. She started crying. She said her friends made her promise not to introduce me until after marriage because they thought I might change my mind if I saw how weird they were. She said they were all a bit awkward and socially anxious. I wanted to believe her, but then her cousin reached out to me privately. She said, look, I don't want to get in the middle, but something is off. Your fiancé has been reconnecting with an old friend who is a known scammer. She's been acting secretive for months. I think you need to find out what's really going on. My heart dropped. I didn't know what to do. I loved her. I had planned our whole future. But I couldn't marry someone who wouldn't let me into her inner circle. I gave her an ultimatum: introduce me to your best friends before the wedding or I walk. She said I was being unreasonable. She said it was a cultural tradition in her family. I pointed out that her own cousin said otherwise. She got silent, then she said, fine, but you won't like them. I met them 2 days later at a cafe. There were 4 women and 1 man. They barely looked me in the eye. One of them kept fidgeting and checking her phone. The conversation was stilted. When I asked how they knew my fiancé, they gave vague answers. We met through a mutual friend. We go back a long way, nothing concrete. My fiancé sat next to me tense, jumping in whenever I asked a direct question. Afterward, I told her I felt like they were acting. She got defensive again. We argued in the car. She said I was never satisfied. I said I couldn't trust her if she couldn't be honest about her friends. She started crying and said, if you really loved me, you wouldn't need to meet them. That was when everything changed. I realized she wasn't just secretive, she was hiding something. I called off the wedding. I told my family. They were shocked. Her family called my parents furious. My fiancée begged me to reconsider. She said she'd introduce me to anyone I wanted, but the damage was done. I never found out the full truth. To this day, I don't know if she was involved in something illegal or if her friends were part of some cult or if she was just ashamed of them. But I know one thing: if someone won't let you into their world before marriage, they're not ready to be your partner. That breakup hurt more than I can describe, but it taught me to trust my instincts and to never ignore red flags just because you're in love. Sometimes the betrayal doesn't come from a partner or a friend. It comes from the people who are supposed to be your mentors, the ones you work for. I'm a woman in my early 30s. I work for a company where the CEO, let's call him Dick, thinks I'm the office mother, not in a respectful way. In a you're reliable and you don't complain, so I'll keep dumping on you way. There's this guy named Bob. He's Dick's golden boy. When Bob's wife had a baby and became a SAHM, Dick thought that was the most admirable thing a man could do. He promoted Bob. Never mind that Bob started showing up late, missing meetings, even sleeping at his desk. I overlooked it because Bob wasn't under me at the time. Then Bob moved across the country for a family emergency. Another promotion. When he came back, he was at my level. Then he got promoted again. Now he outranks me. I haven't had a raise in 4 years. I was silently demoted after I had a baby, even though my work performance didn't change. Dick resented me for being a working mom. He never said it out loud, but he didn't have to. So imagine my surprise last December when Bob texts me out of the blue. The message says, "Hey, can you house my wife, toddler, and dog for a week in January? I'll ask the company to pay for your expenses if you need." I stared at my phone, gobsmacked. This man who has been promoted over me, who comes in late and leaves early, who is praised for being a family man while I am punished for being a mother, he wants me to host his family for free in my home. I didn't even respond. I took an aspirin and went to a meeting with Dick where I knew he would bring it up. He did. Dick said, "Bob mentioned you're helping him out with accommodations. That's really great of you, shows team spirit." I said, "Actually, I haven't agreed to anything." Dick frowned. "Well, I think it would be a good opportunity for you to show you're a team player." Bob's family is in a tough spot. I went home that night and talked to my husband. He said, "No way, you're not hosting anyone. You need to stand up for yourself." So I did. The next day I told Dick that I couldn't host Bob's family. I had my own family, my own schedule. I suggested the company pay for a hotel. Dick got cold. He said, "I thought you were more accommodating than this." I didn't back down. I said, "I have a toddler. I can't host another toddler and a dog for a week. It's not reasonable." Bob then emailed me directly, basically begging. He said his wife had nowhere to go. I replied, "I'm sorry, but I can't help. Please ask HR for a corporate housing option." A few days later, I heard through the grapevine that Dick was telling other managers that I was not a team player and probably just hormonal. That's the label they slap on any woman who says no. I documented everything. I sent a report to HR. They said they would investigate, but I knew nothing would happen, so I started looking for a new job. I updated my resume. I applied everywhere. A month later, I got an offer from a competitor. I put in my 2 weeks' notice. Dick looked shocked. He said, "But you've been here so long, I thought you were loyal." I said, "I am loyal to people who treat me with respect. You haven't." I walked out. I never hosted Bob's family. I never looked back. The lesson I learned is that you don't have to set yourself on fire to keep your boss warm. If they ask for your home, your time, your sanity, you can say no. It's not a request. It's a boundary. And boundaries are not negotiable. But sometimes the person trying to destroy your life isn't your boss or your fiancé. It's someone you've known since childhood, someone you trusted with everything. I met Sarah when I was 11 years old. My family had just moved to a new country. I didn't speak the language well. I was lonely. My future sister-in-law introduced us, and from that first day, Sarah was my anchor. We went to school together, shared secrets, had sleepovers. We grew up side by side. When I met my husband at 23, Sarah was the first person I told. She was in my wedding party. She held my hand during the ceremony. I thought we would be friends forever. We're both 29 now. We have different friend groups, but we still see each other regularly. I work in an office from 9 to 2 with a half-hour break. Sometimes I walk to my husband's office, which is 5 minutes away. Sometimes I grab coffee, and sometimes I have to travel to another city for work. I mention those trips to Sarah in casual conversation. She always seems interested in my schedule. I never thought anything of it. Last Wednesday, I was supposed to travel for work. But Tuesday night, a red weather alert came through. Heavy flooding expected. My trip was canceled. I stayed home with my 2-year-old. My husband left at 6 in the morning to make sure his business was secure and put up flood protection. He came back by 7:30 and made breakfast. It didn't even start raining until 1 in the afternoon. We spent the whole day together, the three of us. Thursday was the same, rain all day. We didn't leave the house until Friday. On Saturday, Sarah and I go to the same gym class. She pulled me aside afterward and said we needed to talk in private. We went out to my car. She looked serious, almost nervous. She said, "On Wednesday, I saw your husband with a woman. They were making out, and your kid was in the car." I froze. For a split second, my heart stopped. But then I remembered. I was home. We were all home. I asked her 3 times, "Are you sure it was this Wednesday?" She confirmed 3 times. I asked what time. She said about 11 in the morning. I asked if it was during the red alert when the city was basically shut down. She said yes. Then she launched into a full description. My husband kissing a gorgeous blonde, a Barbie lookalike, right there in the car with our toddler in the back seat. She gave me every detail. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just looked at her and said, "Sarah, on Wednesday I was home. My husband was home. We made breakfast together at 7:30. Then we played with our daughter. I took a nap at noon. He made lunch at 1. We didn't leave the house until Friday. There is no way he was with another woman." Her face changed. She started backtracking fast. Maybe it was another day. Maybe I got the day wrong. But she had been so specific. She had said this Wednesday 3 times. She had described the weather, the time, the location. I pulled out my phone and showed her the weather alert from Tuesday night, the canceled work trip. I showed her a photo I had taken of my daughter eating breakfast on Wednesday morning with the timestamp. She went pale. She said, "I must have mistaken someone else. I'm sorry." But her voice was shaky. I asked her why she would make up something like that. She said, "I don't know, I was confused." But I didn't believe her. I drove home shaking. That night, I told my husband what happened. He was furious. He said, "She's trying to break us up. Why would she do that?" I didn't have an answer. Sarah and I had never fought. She seemed happy for me when I got married. But now I was wondering if it was all fake. I called her the next day. I said, "Sarah, I need the truth. Why did you lie?" She started crying. She said she was jealous. She said she felt like I didn't have time for her anymore since I got married. She said she wanted me to be a single mom so I would have more time to hang out and travel with her. She admitted it out loud. That was her plan, destroy my marriage so I would be free to be her friend again. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I said, you wanted me to be a single mother, with a 2-year-old, so we could go on vacations. She said yes through sobs. She said she was sorry, that she knew it was stupid, that she never thought it through, but I couldn't forgive her. This wasn't a small mistake. She had tried to frame my husband for cheating. She had used my child as part of her story. If I had believed her, it could have destroyed my marriage. I told her we needed space. She begged me not to end the friendship. She said she would get therapy. I said I needed time. That was 3 months ago. I haven't spoken to her since. I blocked her number. I stopped going to that gym class. I told our mutual friends what happened. Most of them were shocked. A few said they had noticed Sarah acting weird lately, jealous comments when I talked about my husband. I realized the signs had been there, but I had ignored them. Now I look back and think about all those casual conversations where I told her my travel schedule. She was waiting for an opportunity. The day my trip got canceled, she didn't know. She saw her chance and took it. If the weather had been clear, if I had actually been out of town, she could have sown doubt. But she didn't account for the red alert. I still struggle with the betrayal. Someone I loved like a sister tried to ruin my life, but I also feel relief. Better to know now than later. And I learned that sometimes the people closest to you are the ones who envy you most. They smile in your face while planning your downfall. Trust your gut. If a friend ever tries to tell you your partner is cheating, verify. Don't just believe them. And if they push too hard, ask yourself why. I still struggle with the betrayal. Someone I loved like a sister tried to ruin my life. But I also feel relief. Better to know now than later. And I learned that sometimes the people closest to you are the ones who envy you most. They smile in your face while planning your downfall. Trust your gut. If a friend ever tries to tell you your partner is cheating, verify. Don't just believe them. And if they push too hard, ask yourself why. But sometimes the red flags are less obvious. They don't involve a dramatic lie or a weather alert. They're quiet. They're built into the way someone talks about their past, their friends, the parts of their life they keep locked away. And by the time you realize something is wrong, you're already engaged. My fiancé and I started dating 2.5 years ago. She's 32, I'm 28. We met through mutual friends and hit it off immediately. She was funny, smart, beautiful. We posted pictures of our vacations on Instagram, tagged each other in reels, made it clear we were in a relationship. It felt public. It felt real. But I noticed early on that she didn't have many real-life followers on Instagram. She had maybe 7 or 8 close friends she met regularly, plus one cousin. That was it. I didn't think much of it at first. Some people are just private. We decided to get married. I was excited. I brought up meeting my family and she agreed. We went to a nice restaurant in the city. My parents, my sister, my grandmother. She was charming, polite. They loved her. We started discussing dates. I wanted November or December of that year. She said that was too soon. So we settled on February 2025, about 6 months out. I booked a wedding hall. She booked one for her side too. It's normal in our culture for both families to host separate parties. Everything seemed on track. Then came the part that made my stomach turn. I asked if I could meet her best friends. She had mentioned them often, Priya and Jolly Mira. They'd been friends since college. She went to their birthdays, their dinners, their weekend brunches. But whenever I suggested a double date or a group outing, she said they were busy. She said they were shy. She said she wanted to keep her friendship separate from our relationship. I thought that was a little odd, but I let it go. Then one evening she sat me down and said, I don't want you talking to my best friends at all before we get married. Not on the phone, not on text, not in person, nothing. I asked why. She said, because I want our marriage to be just about us. I don't want outside opinions clouding things. They might say something to you that changes how you see me. I need to be the one who tells you about my past, not them. I said, that sounds controlling and a little weird. She got defensive. She said I didn't trust her. She said I was being insecure. She said in her culture, it's normal to keep friends away until after the wedding. I didn't know if that was true. I'm not from her exact background. She's Bengali, I'm not. But I had never heard of that tradition. I asked my own Bengali friends. They said no, that's not a thing. I started digging. Not in a creepy way, I just asked more questions. I asked about her college years. She gave vague answers. I asked why she only had 7 or 8 friends. She said she was selective. I asked about her cousin, the one she was close with. She said he lived in another city and they didn't talk much anymore. Then I found something. I was on Instagram one night scrolling through her tagged photos. There was a picture from 3 years ago before we met. She was at a wedding, smiling with a group of women. One of them commented, miss you friend, when are you coming back to Delhi? My fiancé replied, soon, can't wait to see everyone. So she had more friends than she let on, and she had been to Delhi, a city she never mentioned visiting. I didn't confront her right away. I asked casually, have you ever been to Delhi? She said no. Flat out no. That was when everything changed. I started checking her phone when she left it unlocked. I know, not great, but I was desperate. I saw messages with a friend named Ria. They were planning a trip. My fiancé wrote, just make sure he doesn't find out. If he asks, I'm with my cousin. Ria wrote back, you're still keeping him away. Don't you think you should tell him the truth? I didn't know what truth. I felt sick. I confronted her that night. I said, I saw your messages with Ria. Who is she and why are you lying about Delhi? She broke down. She told me everything. That when she was 25, she had been involved with a group that some people might call a cult. It wasn't a religious cult, more like a self-help group that turned toxic. She had lost touch with her family for a year. Her parents had to intervene. She moved cities, changed her number, cut off almost everyone from that period. The friends she still had, the 7 or 8, were the ones who knew about it and accepted her anyway. The others, including Ria, were from her old life. She kept them at a distance because she was ashamed. She didn't want me to find out because she thought I would leave her. She said she panicked when I asked about her friends. She thought I might contact them and they would tell me about her past. She wanted to control the narrative. She said she loved me and didn't want to lose me. I sat there in silence. Part of me understood. She had been through something traumatic, but another part of me felt manipulated. She had lied about a whole chapter of her life. She had tried to isolate me from her support network, and she had planned to keep it hidden until after we were married. I asked, "What else haven't you told me?" She said nothing, but I didn't believe her. We postponed the wedding. I told my parents we needed more time. She cried, she begged, she said she would find a therapist. She said she would introduce me to Ria and anyone else I wanted to meet. But I couldn't shake the feeling that the trust was broken. I started going to therapy myself. My therapist said it sounded like my fiancé had a lot of unresolved shame and trauma, but that doesn't excuse lying. She said I needed to decide whether I could rebuild trust with someone who had been deceptive for 2.5 years. It's been 3 months now. We're still technically engaged, but I told her we need couples counseling before I set a new date. She agreed. I met Ria. She was nice. She confirmed the cult story, said it was bad but my fiancé had gotten out and rebuilt her life. She said my fiancé was a good person who made mistakes. But she also said if she lied about this, what else could she lie about? That's the question I can't answer. I don't know if we'll make it. Some days I think we can. Other days I feel like I'm marrying a stranger. I wanted to share my life with someone who trusted me completely. Now I realize she never did, and that's the thing about secrets. They don't stay hidden forever. They leak. They crack, and when they break, they take the foundation with them. But sometimes the lies aren't about a past trauma. Sometimes they're about the present, about someone you work with, someone who asks for a favor that sounds reasonable until you realize the price. I thought my biggest problem at work was the lack of raises. Then my boss asked me to host his entire family for a week. Let me back up. I work at a mid-sized company, been there about 8 years now. I'm not a low-level employee, but I'm not in the C-suite either. I manage a team, I'm reliable, I don't cause drama. And I haven't gotten a raise in 4 years. 4 years. Meanwhile, the CEO, let's call him Dick because he is one, has made it clear who his favorite is. That's Bob. Bob started a few years after me. He was a decent enough guy at first, but then his wife had a baby. She quit her job to be a stay-at-home mom, and Dick, for whatever reason, saw that as the ultimate virtue. He started promoting Bob. Didn't matter that Bob started showing up late. Didn't matter that he was missing hours, taking naps in the office. He was a family man, a real man, someone who took care of his wife and kid. I had a baby around the same time. I came back after maternity leave. I kept the same hours. I never missed a deadline, but instead of a promotion, I got a silence. Then I got a silent demotion, no title change, just smaller projects, fewer responsibilities, less visibility, because I had the audacity to have a baby while being the mother in the room, not the father. Dick never said it out loud, but the message was clear. Anyway, Bob kept climbing. A year ago, he and his family had to move across the country for a family emergency. Another promotion. Then a few months ago, he got promoted again. Now he outranks me, he's above me in the hierarchy, and he's even more unreachable than before. So imagine my surprise when my phone buzzed with a text from Bob last week. Hey, I need a favor. My wife and toddler and dog are coming to the city for a week in January. They need a place to stay. Can they crash at your place? If not, I can ask the company to pay for accommodations. I stared at the message. I stared at it for a long time. Not only was he asking me, someone he barely talks to, someone who is technically a colleague, to house his entire family, wife, toddler, and dog for a week, but he added the part about the company paying as an afterthought, like it was no big deal. Like I would jump at the chance to have a toddler and a dog in my home for 7 days. I thought this has to be a joke, but it was. I didn't respond right away. I had a meeting with Dick that afternoon, and sure enough, Dick brought it up. Bob mentioned you might be able to help out with his family, Dick said, leaning back in his chair. That's really great of you, shows team spirit, community, that's what we value here. I said, I haven't agreed to anything. Dick's smile faded a little. Well, we'd really appreciate it. He's in a tough spot. Family emergency across the country. The wife needs a safe place for a week. You have space, right? You live in that house with the extra guest bedroom. I felt my jaw tighten. I live in a 3-bedroom house. My husband and I have 1 room. Our child has another. The third is my home office. That's where I work from home 2 days a week. It's also where I keep my sanity. I said, I have an office, not a guest room. Dick waved his hand. You can make it work. You're a woman. You're good at that. I didn't scream. I wanted to. I wanted to stand up and say, you haven't given me a raise in 4 years. You demoted me for having a baby, and now you want me to house your golden boy's family for free while he gets paid to not be here. But I didn't. I just said, I'll think about it. That night I talked to my husband. He said, absolutely not, you don't owe them anything, say no. My sister, who I called for advice, said the same thing, but I still felt pressured. Bob kept texting. Dick kept bringing it up in passing. Any update on Bob's family? They're really counting on you. The thing is, it's not just the ask, it's what the ask says about where I stand. I'm the backup, the default. The one who is expected to sacrifice because I'm a woman, because I'm nurturing, because I'm not important enough to say no to. I finally texted Bob. I can't host your family. My office is not a guest room and I have work deadlines that week. I wish you the best finding accommodations through the company. He didn't reply for 2 days, then he sent a message to our group team chat. Anyone know a good short-term rental in the city? Need something for my wife and toddler and dog. The company is covering it. He didn't mention me at all, but I saw the passive aggression. Then Dick called me into his office. Bob's family had to book an Airbnb last minute. Cost the company $1,200, he said, not looking at me. We could have saved that if you had helped out. Team players don't usually let the team down. I said, I'm a team player, I'm just not a free hotel. Dick looked at me like I had grown a second head. Nobody said free, we would have reimbursed you. You didn't offer anything, I said, you just expected it. He didn't have a response, he just shook his head and said, I'm disappointed. I walked out of that meeting and started updating my resume. I don't care if I'm overreacting. This is my life, my time, my home. I am not someone else's maid, and I'm sure as hell not Dick's mother. But this kind of thing doesn't happen in a vacuum. It happens because the system rewards men for being fathers and punishes women for being mothers. It happens because Bob got promoted for being a family man while I got punished for being a mother. It happens because the company expects me to give up my space, my time, my boundaries, because that's what women do. We accommodate, we sacrifice, we smile and say yes. I didn't say yes, and that felt good for about 5 minutes. Then I realized I might have made an enemy of both Bob and Dick. And in a company where 4 years without a raise is already the norm, that's a dangerous place to be. I don't know if I should go to HR. A coworker told me it's not illegal to ask. It's just in bad taste. But I documented everything, the texts, the meeting, the comments about being a team player. I have a file now because if they try anything, I want it on record. I also started interviewing. I have 2 interviews next week. I don't know if I'll get offers, but I know I can't stay where I'm not valued. Where my labor is taken for granted and my home is seen as a company resource. The worst part is Bob never even thanked me. He just moved on to the next solution. That's the entitlement. That's the thing that makes me furious. He never saw me as a person. He saw me as an option. And when I said no, he found another one without a second thought. I used to think my value at work was about my performance. Now I know it's about how much I'm willing to give up. And I've given enough. I thought that was the worst betrayal I'd ever face at work. But sometimes the betrayal comes from someone much closer, someone you've known since you were 11 years old, someone you trusted with your secrets, your fears, your marriage. Let me tell you about Sarah. I met Sarah when I was 11. My family had just moved to a new country and I was lost. I didn't speak the language well. I didn't know anyone. My sister-in-law introduced us. She and Sarah were already friends. Sarah was the same age as me and she took me under her wing. We became inseparable. Through middle school, high school, college, and into adulthood, she was at my wedding. She held my hand when my son was born. She was the first person I called when I got my first real job. I'm 29 now, so is Sarah. We've been best friends for 18 years. I work in an office 9 to 2 with a 30-minute break. Sometimes I use that break to go to a cafe near my job. Sometimes I walk 5 minutes to my husband's office and have a second breakfast with him. It's a small routine, but I love it. My husband works in a small business. He's the kind of guy who makes me laugh even when I'm stressed. We have a 2-year-old son and life is chaotic but good. Sarah and I still see each other regularly. We go to the same gym class on Saturdays. We text almost every day. She's never given me a reason to doubt her until last week. It was a Wednesday in November. The night before, there was a red alert about the weather. Heavy rain, flooding, the whole thing. My work trip for Wednesday was canceled. I stayed home with my son. My husband left at 6 in the morning to go check on his business and put up flood protection. He was back home by 7:30 making breakfast. It didn't even start raining until 1 in the afternoon. We stayed inside the whole day, ordered pizza, watched cartoons. It was boring and perfect. At 3 in the afternoon, Sarah texted me, "Are you home already? I heard it's flooding where you were supposed to travel." I texted back, "Home safe, weather canceled, everything." She replied with a thumbs up. I didn't think anything of it. On Saturday, we went to gym class like usual. Afterwards, Sarah looked at me with a serious face. "We need to talk in private." I felt a knot in my stomach. We walked to my car and she got in the passenger seat. She took a deep breath. "On Wednesday, I saw your husband with a woman. They were making out and your kid was in the car." I froze, my heart stopped, I couldn't breathe, but then I remembered, Wednesday, I was with my husband all day, he was home before 8, we didn't go out until Friday, there was no way. I asked her, "Are you sure it was this Wednesday?" "Yes," she said, "Wednesday morning around 11. During the red alert?" "Yes." "Are you 100% sure?" She nodded. Then she started describing it. My husband making out with some gorgeous blonde woman, a Barbie lookalike in a car with my baby in the back seat. The words didn't match reality. I wasn't crying, I wasn't screaming. Just said, "That's impossible, I was with him all day, we were at home together." Sarah's face went blank. "What? I was home," I said. "My work trip was canceled. He was home too. We made breakfast together. We played with our son. We didn't leave the house until Friday." She stared at me. Then she said, "Maybe it was a different day. Maybe it was the week before." I said, "You told me 3 times it was Wednesday. You described it in detail. You were so sure." She started backpedaling. Maybe I saw someone who looked like him, maybe I was confused. But how do you confuse that? How do you mistake someone for your best friend's husband, a man you've known for years, and then add a detailed description of a kiss and a kid in the car? I didn't raise my voice, I just looked at her. Why would you say that? Why would you make that up? She denied making it up. She said she believed she saw him. She said maybe she was tired. She said maybe she was stressed. But none of it made sense. I drove home in silence. I told my husband what happened. He looked confused, then angry, then sad. Why would she do that? He asked. I didn't have an answer. I called Sarah that night. I asked her again point blank, did you see him or not? She said, I thought I did, but maybe I was wrong. I said, that's not good enough. You tried to destroy my marriage. You tried to make me believe my husband was cheating on me with my baby in the car. That's not a mistake, that's sabotage. She started crying. She apologized over and over. She said she didn't know why she said it. She said she felt terrible. I didn't accept the apology. I told her I needed space. I hung up. I spent the next few days replaying every conversation we'd had, every small comment she'd made about my husband. Every time she'd said I deserved better, every time she'd pointed out how much he worked, how he was gone sometimes, I thought she was just being a protective friend. Now I see it differently. I don't know why she did it. Maybe she wanted me to be single so we could hang out more. Maybe she was jealous of my marriage. Maybe she wanted him for herself. I'll never know. But I do know this, I can't trust her anymore. I haven't spoken to her since that phone call. She's texted me a few times. Can we talk? I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. I haven't responded. My husband says I should cut her off completely. My mom says maybe I should give her a chance to explain, but I don't see how she can explain this. She tried to hurt my family. She tried to make me doubt the man I love. And the only reason she failed is that the weather canceled my trip. If I had been traveling that day, I might have believed her. I might have come home and confronted my husband. I might have started a fight, packed a bag, taken my son. She almost destroyed everything. And I don't know why, that's the hardest part. 18 years of friendship and I have no idea what was going on in her head. Maybe I never will, but I know one thing, I'm not going to let her back in, not after this. Some bridges can't be uncrossed, and some lies are too big to forgive. I didn't think I'd ever have to question the person I was about to marry. But here we are, 6 months before our wedding, and my fiancé won't let me meet her best friends. Not just won't let me meet them, she won't let me even talk to them. No phone calls, no texts, no nothing. She says it has to wait until after we're married, and I can't figure out why. I'm 28, she's 32. We've been together for 2.5 years. From the outside, everything looked perfect. We posted pictures of our vacations on Instagram. We tagged each other in cute reels. Everyone knew we were a couple, but the thing is, she only has about 7 or 8 real-life friends she actually sees regularly. And that's fine, I'm not a social butterfly either, but I introduced her to my family last month. I took her to a nice restaurant in the city. My parents loved her. My siblings loved her. We booked the wedding hall for February 2025, 6 months away. She even booked a hall for her side of the party. That's normal in our culture. The bride and groom each have their own celebration, so why won't she let me meet her friends? She has this one best friend, Priya. They've known each other since college. They talk every day. Priya is married, has 2 kids. I've never met her, never even heard her voice on the phone. Whenever I'm around and my fiancé gets a call from Priya, she steps into another room. At first, I thought it was just privacy. Some people are like that, but then it kept happening, every time, and she never let me say hello. I asked her about it 2 months ago. We were sitting on the couch watching a movie. I said, hey, I'd really like to meet your friends, especially Priya. She seems important to you. She tensed up. Why do you need to meet her before the wedding? Because she's your best friend. I want to know the people you love. She said, it's not a good time. She's busy. Maybe after we're married. I let it go. But a few weeks later, I brought it up again. Can we at least do a video call? Just 10 minutes. She got defensive. Why are you pushing this? Don't you trust me? I said, of course I trust you, but you're hiding this whole part of your life from me. It feels weird. She said I was being paranoid. She said some cultures don't mix friends and family until after the wedding. She said it was just her way, but we live in the same city. She goes out with Priya once a week. I've never been invited, not once. Then I found something that really shook me. I was helping her sort through some old boxes in her apartment. She had a bunch of old photos and letters. I wasn't snooping. She asked me to help organize. I opened a small box and saw a picture of her with a group of friends. On the back, someone had written a note, to the best partner I'll never have. Love, R. I asked her who R was. She snatched the photo out of my hand and said, an old friend, it doesn't matter, we were teenagers. But her face went red, her hands were shaking. I said, if it doesn't matter, why are you hiding it? She said she wasn't hiding it. She said I was making a big deal out of nothing. Then she took the box and put it in her closet and locked the door. I didn't push further. But I started paying attention. She mentioned her cousin once, a male cousin. She said they were close growing up, but she never introduced me to him either. And when I asked about him, she said, he's not important, we don't talk much. But I saw his name pop up on her phone. She said it was just casual text. She never let me see the screen. Finally, I sat her down last week. I said, I need you to be honest with me. Why can't I meet your friends? Why can't I even talk to Priya on the phone? She sighed. She looked at the floor. She said, because I'm not sure I want to marry you. I felt like the ground opened up under me. What do you mean? I asked. She said, I love you. But I've been lying to myself. I'm not ready. I'm scared. I have a lot of things from my past that I haven't dealt with. I don't want you to see that part of me until I'm sure. I said, until you're sure about what? About us. I asked her if she was seeing someone else. She said no. I asked her if she had feelings for an ex. She said no, but she wouldn't look me in the eye. I told her I couldn't plan a wedding with someone who won't let me meet her best friend. I told her I needed transparency. She started crying and said she'd introduce me to Priya next week. She said she'd try, but I don't know if I believe her. I don't know if she's hiding something bigger. Maybe it's just cold feet, maybe it's something else. But the fact that she'd rather keep me separate from her closest friends, people who are supposed to be at our wedding, makes me wonder what they know that I don't. I haven't called off the wedding yet, but I postponed the hall booking. I told my family we need to think things through. They're confused, they liked her. They think I'm overreacting, but I'm not. I can feel it, something is wrong. And if she can't be honest with me now, what's it going to be like after we're married? I'm supposed to meet Priya this Saturday. My fiancé agreed to a coffee date. I'll see if she actually shows up. And if she does, I'll see if Priya knows anything. I hope I'm wrong. I hope this is just nerves. But deep down, I think I already know the answer. And it's not going to be the one I want. I hope I'm wrong. I hope this is just nerves. But deep down, I think I already know the answer. And it's not going to be the one I want. Saturday came. I showed up at the coffee shop at 10 a.m. My fiancé was already there, sitting with a woman I assumed was Priya. She had dark hair, glasses, and she looked nervous. I walked over and introduced myself. Priya smiled, but it was tight. My fiancé kept glancing between us like she was waiting for a bomb to go off. We made small talk for about 10 minutes, then I asked Priya how she knew my fiancé. She said college, same dorm, same major. I asked what they did for fun. She said they used to go hiking, but not anymore. Then I asked something I probably shouldn't have. I said, has she ever talked about me? Priya looked at my fiancé. My fiancé shook her head slightly, but Priya said she has. She said you're a good guy. I said, but Priya didn't answer. My fiancé jumped in and said we should order more coffee. I said no, I want to hear what she was going to say. Priya looked down at her cup. She said, you're a good guy, but she's been scared for a while. She has a lot of baggage and she's not good at talking about it. I said, what baggage? My fiancé said, stop, this is between us. But Priya said she had a past relationship that ended badly, really badly. She's insecure. She didn't want you to meet her friends because she thought we'd tell you things she wasn't ready to share. I said, like what? Priya said, her ex was controlling. He tried to isolate her from everyone. She broke free, but she's terrified that if you meet us, you'll see what he didn't like. She's scared you'll think the same things he did. I looked at my fiancé. She was crying. I asked her if that was true. She said yes. She said she was ashamed of that part of her life. She thought if I met her friends, they'd tell me about the fights, the jealousy, the mess. She thought I'd run. I felt a knot in my stomach. I told her I wasn't him. I told her I loved her, but I also told her she needed to trust me. We can't get married if she's hiding from me. She agreed to start counseling. She agreed to let me meet the rest of her friends, but I don't know if I can ignore that she kept this from me for 2 years. I don't know if I'll ever stop wondering what else she's hiding. We're still engaged, but I'm not confident. I keep thinking about that locked closet and that photo and the note. Maybe this will work out, maybe it won't, but I know one thing, I'm not going into this marriage blind anymore. About a year later, I thought I'd seen the worst of workplace nonsense. Then my boss asked me to host his entire family for a week. I'm a manager at a mid-sized company. I've been there 8 years. I'm reliable, I'm competent, and I've been overlooked for promotions more times than I can count. My boss, let's call him Bob, used to be my peer. Then he became the CEO's golden boy. Bob had a kid, his wife became a stay-at-home mom, and the CEO, who I'll call Dick because he is one, decided that made Bob a hero. Bob got promoted, then promoted again. Now Bob outranks me. And I haven't gotten a raise in 4 years. So when Bob texted me on a Tuesday afternoon asking if I could house his wife, toddler, and dog for a week in January, I thought it was a joke. Then he said, if that doesn't work, we can ask the company to pay for accommodations. I stared at my phone. My dude, you haven't done a single thing for me. You've taken credit for my work. You've shown up late and slept at your desk. And now you want me to be your free hotel? I didn't respond. But I had a meeting with Dick an hour later. And Dick brought it up. He said, Bob mentioned you might be able to help him out. That's really great of you. Family first, right? I said, I don't think I can do that, Dick. I have my own family. My house isn't set up for guests. Dick frowned. I thought you said you had a spare room. I have a home office, not a guest room. There's no bed, no space. Bob, who was in the meeting, said, we can bring a blow-up mattress.